In this conversation, I'll explain to you how to set up an LLC from start to finish, but even more, I'll explain to you how to stay compliant and how to run your LLC overall in a proper manner. But let's first go back to the basics. So what is the overview? What is an LLC? A limited liability company, or LLC, is a type of legal entity that U.S. business owners can select for the operation of their enterprise. And the cool thing here is that LLCs are kind of popular because they provide a lot of benefits. I'll talk about the benefits later on. But chief among those benefits are the ability to protect your assets and also the fact that you can avoid double taxation. And one thing I want to say here is that, creating an LLC overall protects your personal assets in case of legal trouble or bankruptcy. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. Now, the question is, do you need an LLC for your business? No. Everything depends upon the kind of strategy you have, because you can run your business as a sole proprietorship, not a problem. You can run your business as an S corporation, as a C corporation, as an LLP. Everything depends upon the kind of a business model you have and the states you're in too, because when we talk about LLCs are run at the state level. And is it possible to set up an LLC for free? Yes. If you do everything yourself, yes. But you still have to pay LLC fees at the state level. So we're speaking about things like articles of organization, or there are other filing fees that you need to account for. But overall, yes, you can actually do the paperwork yourself. But a lot of folks just like to outsource this task to a third party because it's just a lot better to actually outsource everything to a professional. And it doesn't take long to actually set up an LLC. Depending upon your states, it can take somewhere from a few hours to a few days. It really depends upon the kind of how complicated, quote unquote, complicated your LLC is really. Like, it depends on how complex or simple your LLC is. One thing I want to say also is that when we talk about LLCs in general, I want you to say that if you are trying to, let's say, shield yourself from legal liability, you can actually have an LLC own another LLC. People actually create multiple layers of LLCs. This is totally possible. It really depends, going back to what I said, it depends on the type of structure you have. An LLC can also be a nonprofit. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to actually run an LLC for profit matters. But I'll go back to those details later on. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here. Now that I've explained to you some basics about LLCs, let's go back to the real nitty-gritty, the step-by-steps. The first thing you want to do if you want to set up your LLC from start to finish is to decide on a business name. So when we talk about business name, we're speaking about a few things. Now, you might be thinking, well, it's just a name. No, it's not just a name, because the name has several implications. Number one, it has legal implications, because you do not want to pick up a name that is already in use. Like there's another company or another entrepreneur, another group actually using that name, or you don't want to pick up a name that is not compliant. In other words, there are some names that have some words or concepts that state authorities do not want to have. For example, in some states, they do not want to have banking or insurance in the name. Also, we have the name has also branding connotations, because you want to make sure that your name is in sync with the specific purpose of your business. And there are some people who actually, once they have the name, they automatically file to register a domain name, because they want to make sure that their business name is also available on let's say on an e-commerce basis. Or I mean, even if you do not want to have an online store, you still want to have a website at some point. So you want your name, you want your company's name to be registered as a domain name. So those are things I want you to really think about. In general, state laws will not allow you to choose a business name that's already been used by another business in your state. So you want to, and the best way to avoid any problem is to go to the website that actually handles all corporation matters, and you see a search bar that will say, okay, put the name that you want to choose. You want to put it in that search bar and see if that name is available. If it's available, what you want to do is you have the option to reserve the name. In some states, they actually give you the option to reserve the name for a fee. Of course, you might pay like 20, 25 or 25, $30 to reserve the name for future use, or you can just get the name right away. So it's all about how fast you want to go. And what I want to say also is that you might probably need to include some version of LLC or limited liability company at the end of your business name. Okay, you can actually review your state's LLC naming requirements and find out if the name you want is available. by visiting the website of the state agency responsible for business filings. It's usually the Secretary of State, and there you just do a name search. By the way, boss, I wanted to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to set up an LLC from start to finish. The next thing you want to do here is to designate a registered agent. So once you actually have a name, you want to automatically think about having a registered agent. Now, when we talk about having a registered agent, there are two options here. You can actually do it yourself. In other words, you can name yourself a registered agent, or you can actually name an employee of the LLC. That's one. Or you can just designate a third party. Let's quickly talk about that. Now, every state requires LLCs to have a registered agent. And a registered agent is basically someone who receives official or legal documents such as subpoenas on behalf of your LLC. So once received, the registered agent then passes on these documents to the LLC. So anyone who is at least 18 years of age can be a registered agent, and you are allowed to name yourself or an employee. However, remember that the agent must be available at an address within your state during normal business hours. You can also designate a company that provides registered agent services. And but when you do this, you want to really plan for like a certain amount of money, like a certain amount every year, because it will come at a fee, of course. And pricing for a registered agent may cost more than $100 per year. And so, but I want to quickly talk about you being your own registered agent. Now, you can do it. You can legally act as your registered agent in every state. However, the availability of this option doesn't automatically make it suitable for everyone. If you decide to act as your LLC's registered agent, you should know that your name and address will soon become a matter of public record. Are you willing to do that? I mean, are you comfortable having your name actually being broadly or being seen there over the internet? This is the thing. And you must receive and handle crucial legal documents or notices as your LLC's registered agent. So if you're not as knowledgeable about local laws and believe you will actually struggle to manage this type of paperwork, acting as your own agent may not be the best, even if the goal is to save money. And you want to carefully consider your options and perhaps even consult with a lawyer or professional agency before becoming your LLC's registered agent. Step number 3, you want to get a copy of your state's LLC Articles of Organization form. And the thing is that every state has a different form. And so don't say, well, I'm in New York, so, the form in New York is kind of similar to the form in Jersey. No, the forms are different. They might be like an 80% or 75 to 80% similar, but there are some words, there are some concepts, there are some sections that might be different. So bottom line here is to establish your LLC as a legal entity, you will file a document with a state agency that handles business filings in your state. In most states, this document is called the Articles of Organization, but in some states, you might actually see it as a certificate of formation. So when you hear certificate of formation or Articles of Organization, it's the same thing. Each state has a form you can use. So to actually find your state's form, go to the same website you use for business name search. Step number 4. You want to prepare the LLC Articles of Organization form. So once you actually download the form, you want to actually go through all the important parts of that form and make sure, please go granular here, because this is a legal document. This is a document that constitute the foundational element of your LLC. Each state lists its specific requirements and procedures for those trying to form an LLC. So basic information you will need to provide includes your business name, the address of your principal place of business, the purpose of the business, the way your LLC will be managed, the contact information for the registered agent, and in some states, the agent's signature, the duration of the LLC. So once these steps are complete, one or more business owners or organizers will need to sign the form. So this is kind of crucial. Now, some states, such as Nebraska and New York, they even require you to publish a notice in the newspaper indicating your desire to register your LLC. And this step must be completed before filing the Articles of Organization. The bottom line here is that when you think about having an LLC, make sure that you are separating your private address from your LLC's address. Because a lot of folks who actually are running their LLC from their house, they like to actually have a third-party address. For example, you can have a virtual address, a virtual mailbox to handle all the paperwork. So that if something were to happen, you know that your private address will never be revealed. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We're having a conversation about how to set up an LLC from start to finish. Next, you want to file the articles of organization. So basically, once you actually, you've gone through everything, you need to file it. So you want to check your articles of organization carefully before submitting them to your state. Remember what I said, this is a legal document. So you want to make sure all information on that form is granular. It has been reviewed at a very granular level and you're comfortable with the content. That's why a lot of folks like to actually have an attorney review the articles of organization before submission. You also need to pay a filing fee, which varies depending on the state where you are forming your business. So when your formation documents are approved, you will be issued a certificate by the state to indicate your LLC is formally registered. And you want to use it for other necessary tasks, such as setting up a business bank account or getting a tax ID number. I'll talk about the EIN later on. So step number 6, you want to create something called an operating agreement. So an operating agreement contains the details of the financial, legal, and management rights of all members of the LLC. And more specifically, it can include how profits will be distributed. Very important. People want to have a clear idea how the money will be split up, right? How members leave the LLC and who contributes capital for the business. In essence, it should contain all relevant information pertaining to the operations of your LLC. This is really important, especially if you have a multi-member LLC. Because if you're by yourself, it's called a single-member LLC. It's not really that important, but if you have a multi-member LLC, it becomes very, very crucial. Many states, as a matter of fact, don't require an operating agreement, but it doesn't mean you don't need to craft one. LLCs with more than one member or partner will want to create one to ensure everyone agrees on their rights and responsibilities. Even solo business owners benefit from outlining the details in writing. And so crafting your own operating agreement is one option, especially for single member LLCs. And the cool thing is there are plenty of free templates online to get you started. But if you have more complex situation or you have multi-member LLCs, it's just a lot better to hire an experienced attorney to actually get the job done. You might be thinking, well, I want to save like $300 or $400. But if you have the right documents, this becomes the foundational documents for your LLC. That's why this is an investment that's really, really worth it. Step number 7, you want to keep your LLC active. Because when we think about it, setting up your LLC is only the start. Once it's formed, you need to ensure your business remains in good standing with your state. Again, you want to refer to your state's business filing website for current information on how to do so. You may need to file something called like an annual report that updates information pertaining to your LLC and pay an annual filing fee. Let me give you a few pro tips. There are other important tasks when creating an LLC. But I'll just give you like the 7 important tasks, but there are some ancillary tasks. For example, you want to obtain business licenses and permits. So in addition to documents for establishing your LLC, you'll likely need to complete forms and submit fees related to business licenses and permits. And this information is likely available from the same office or on the official website as part of the list of business forms and fee schedules. So you want to confirm the types of licenses and fees your business needs to operate legally within your state. Be mindful though of important deadlines because you will likely have to apply to renew your license or permit periodically. Usually it's every year, but in some cases it can be every 2 or 3 years. But you want to comply there because failure to meet renewal requirements could cause your LLC to lose its status as a legally recognized business. So that's for business licenses and permits. Another thing I want you to do also is to get an employer identification number. So this is important because it will help you sort of separate your LLC's assets from your personal assets. And also, banks often require an EIN when opening a business account for your LLC. Moreover, for some businesses, an EIN is mandatory. You should get your EIN as soon as you set up your new company. You also want to pay attention to dividing up your business and personal assets. Because see, the thing is that there are specific actions that help separate your private assets from those linked to your business. So having an EIN and getting a business bank account are two common ways to begin the process of divorcing your private assets from those that are linked to your business. And so you also want to pay attention to how you pay yourself. Typically, the payment process entails withdrawals from the business account associated with your LLC. Such a withdrawal would have to be labeled an owner's draw because it allows you to treat yourself as an employee paid by the business, avoiding the issues raised by spending company money for private use. Before we close to this conversation, let's go back to why is it important to form an LLC. But one thing I said is that you can run your business as a sole proprietorship. You don't have to form a business. You don't have to form an LLC, an LLP, an S corporation, or a C corporation. But there are many benefits that actually come with forming an LLC. For example, you have low startup cost. You have tax-related benefits. You have liability shielding. Let's talk about the startup cost. Startup cost, you could probably just pay anywhere from $50 all the way to $500. Now, if you do it yourself, you probably will have to pay $50 to $100. This is basically the fees that the state authorities are asking you. But if you were to hire a third party to actually handle everything for you, then they might have to charge you a little more, especially if you are hiring the same third party to be your registered agent and take care of other stuff. Okay. So, but overall, an LLC is cheaper to run and to set up and run than let's say a C corporation or an S corporation. You also have tax-related benefits. So LLCs are unique in that they can be treated as pass-through entities and claimed on personal taxes, even as business taxes get separated from one's finances. Many LLC owners prefer this option because it helps avoid the possibility of double taxation. That said, there are cases where LLCs may be treated as a sole proprietorship, partnership, C corporation, or S corporation for tax purposes. You also have liability shielding. And so basically, as the name implies, running a limited liability company provides members and owners with some liability protection. For instance, successfully designating the business assets protects members' assets if the company ever gets sued. So this is important. Now, one thing I want to say here is that overall, learning how to start an LLC isn't too complex. There are even companies available to help you complete the paperwork and even handle yearly obligations on your behalf, such as annual reports. And when we talk about you setting up your LLC, there are different types of LLCs to consider. You have single member LLC, multi-member LLC, L3C, series LLC, PLC, restricted LLC, and you also have anonymous LLC. I mean, this is uncommon, but it does happen if you're trying to be anonymous. So in terms of cost overall, think about $50 all the way to $500. Okay, but again, it depends on how complex your LLC your LLC operations are. You know, so but normally $50 to $500. And in terms of taxation, as I said before, it really depends on what kind of LLC you have. But usually, you can file on your 1040, or you can file something else, like you can file like 1065. And this is totally possible. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I explained to you how to set up an LLC from start to finish. And basically the steps are, you want to decide on a business name. You want to designate a registered agent. You want to get a copy of your state's LLC articles of organization. You want to prepare those articles of organization you want to prepare the form. You want to file the articles of organization. You want to create something called operating agreement, and you want to keep your LLC active. Very important. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you another time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.